Hello, St. Anne Parish, and welcome to this week's Advent Potpourri of Quick Things. A few reminders and then some just kind of pre-Christmas observations on a few things. First of all, a reminder of our last opportunity to celebrate the Sacrament of Reconciliation. A good thing to do as we anticipate Christmas, to kind of put ourselves at peace with the Lord and reconcile things, maybe with ourselves, with one another in that sacrament. That will be from 5 to 6 p.m. on Wednesday or beyond 6 o'clock if needed. So again, 5 to 6 p.m. on Wednesday, the Sacrament of Reconciliation in our new reconciliation room, which is located where the Blessed Sacrament Chapel used to be. Then also our Thursday night Advent evening Mass at 5:30 has been a really popular feature of our Advent celebration, and it's nice. We have a full week of Advent. We can come together even on the fourth week of Advent to celebrate that Thursday night Mass. That's at 5:30 on Thursday. Reminder too of our Advent giving opportunities. So we're collecting now at Christmas time up until Epiphany gift cards for Quick Trip, Pick and Save Festival, and Walgreens in values of $5 to $25, and we'll share those with St. Vincent de Paul, who have a good outreach, a way of discerning folks' need and distributing those. So those gift card contributions can be put in the collection basket when you come to Mass now over the next few weeks, and we'll share them then with St. Vincent de Paul. And then also the baby bottle campaign for the Hope Life Center. The baby bottles have been distributed. We won't have them out anymore after this week. They're still in the gathering space or in the entranceway now, but checks can also be provided if you make a contribution or want it to be directed to Hope Life Center. Make the check out to St. Anne and put Hope in the memo line. Otherwise, those baby bottles that folks have already taken throughout Advent, we'll gather those now during the Christmas season. So there'll be a basket in the gathering space where you can put your baby bottle with your coins, cash, or checks, and we'll get those to the people at the Hope Life Center. So just to be reminded of that. So many positive comments and a personal great experience with our visit, our evenings of mission music and light with Valimar Jansen and Frank Jansen last week. The weather wasn't particularly great. More so, I think the weather forecast scared some people away on Tuesday night. We had a very nice crowd Monday night. Weather forecast by Tuesday was getting, alarmist, and people better stay home. And everyone took heed, or some people took heed of that. We had a nice crowd on Tuesday, but I think the weather was fine. It got problematic later on Tuesday, and then Wednesday, the first of our 2 snow days. We had like almost 40 people who came out that night for Frank and Valimar's last presentation. Regardless, so many positive comments. If you were able to join us or not, links to the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday presentations are all available online. Links are in the Quick Things email. You can also find them on the website, but you might be very well seeing this via the Quick Things email, and the links are included here. So they'll be available for about a month, and we'll include them in the Quick Things email for the next several weeks. So if you don't have time this week, check back in future emails and we'll have those links there, but well worth your time. They were just, not only were the presentations well received and, just wonderful evenings with them, but they were nice people to have around as well. They stayed at the rectory and were great house guests, very, they didn't cause trouble. It wasn't like a house guest you were hoping, like counting the minutes until they were going to leave. They were really easy to have, and we're very grateful that they would share their time and talent with us here at St. Anne and be such an important part of our Advent observance. So again, check out, if you haven't, whether you were there or not, if you were there, you probably want to see it again, but those links are in the Quick Things email and will be for the next few weeks. We have an Epiphany open house coming up. This is something we did for a few years before the pandemic, and we're going to open the doors of the rectory again. All parishioners are invited to gather Saturday, January 7th. So that's as we'll be celebrating Epiphany. The open house, so you can come and go anytime between 5 and 7 p.m. And hope that you will put that on your calendar and join us for that Epiphany open house. The Inspired by the Spirit campaign is entering its final phase. We're calling it the Christmas wrap-up. Get it? Like wrapping presents. And we hope that a good number of parishioners will help us wrap up the campaign and move us beyond, well into completing our goal. We are at 95% of our target, and we have just a ways to go. And so hopefully Christmas time might be a time of some additional giving from folks who have not contributed or pledged to the campaign, and you can push us over the top. The Christmas wrap-up of the Inspired by the Spirit campaign. A link is in the email. You can contribute and pledge online. There are also pledge forms in the Christmas bulletin coming up this weekend, and in the entranceway as well. So various ways that we can make our pledge and our contributions to Inspired by the Spirit. There was an article in the New York Times on Sunday about the tension that has developed because Christmas is being celebrated on a Sunday, and what some Christian churches are doing because they celebrate Christmas on Christmas Eve, sometimes beginning in the morning on Christmas Eve. And so they realize no one will come to church on Sunday, so we just won't have services on Sunday, which seems problematic for a Christian church not to worship on the Lord's Day. In the New York Times article that described this situation, they said that Catholic churches require that their people come to Mass on Christmas and Sunday. So it was very unclear what they were, but giving the impression that if you went to church on Christmas Eve, for example, like we will have Masses at 4, 6, and 8, that you would still have to come to Mass on Christmas Day, when we will have Mass at 9:30. What they didn't understand is that Catholics tell time differently. And so we worship on Christmas Eve. Ideally, our first liturgy would be after sunset. So the day of Christmas for us begins at sundown on Christmas Eve and goes until sundown on Christmas Day. So there is nothing inconsistent in us celebrating Christmas on Christmas Eve because we begin late enough that at least when we finish our 4 o'clock worship, it will be dark. It will already be Christmas. That's probably why I won't be greeting people with Merry Christmas as they're entering church, because it's still daylight and it's really still Christmas Eve. But by the time we leave, it will be Christmas. And that will be true for our other 3 liturgies. Now, we don't have to be too legalistic about all this. Granted, a year ago, we celebrated Mass at 2 p.m. on Christmas Eve, and lots of people liked that. And that was maybe opening a door that shouldn't have been opened, because again, as we tell time, Christmas is celebrated after sundown on Christmas Eve. And I think there's something worthwhile in holding to that without again becoming too wrapped up in the legalities of it all. I guess these other churches have gone so far down a road of making things convenient or whatever the rationale is, that now here we come and we don't celebrate it all on Christmas Day. All of our worship occurs on Christmas Eve. And so as they find themselves now coming this year with Christmas on a Sunday, with nothing to celebrate on Sunday because they've done everything on Christmas Eve. And for people who believe in the resurrection, which is our primary celebration always is the resurrection, which we celebrate every Sunday. It's odd to think that there would be dark churches and locked doors on Sunday, which is Christmas morning. So again, our worship on Christmas Eve is complete. If you come to Mass at 8 o'clock on Christmas Eve, you don't need to come back on Christmas morning. But we will have Mass on Christmas morning. I just thought first of all, it was a misunderstanding in the article of what Catholics maintain. But just curious that other churches are finding this struggle to even worship on Sunday, because so much, everything, all of their effort has been put into scheduling and facilitating worship on Christmas Eve. So thankfully, we're not at that point. We will still worship on the Lord's Day, but recognizing, just as is always true, our worship on Saturday fulfills whatever obligation we would have on Sunday, but always an opportunity, and especially an opportunity as we celebrate Christmas, 4 liturgies spread out, and hopefully, again, our encouragement, if you can avoid the 4 o'clock, that would probably be easier. It'll be easier for all of us. A smaller crowd to have to deal with. I mean, in terms of, we want people there, but we don't want to be having hassles in the parking lot and struggling to find seats and things like that. If we spread ourselves out, that's the point of having 4 liturgies. Hopefully we can all have a nice, prayerful, peaceful celebration of Christmas. So we'll have Mass on Christmas Eve, and we will worship on Christmas Day. One other thing, Minnesota Public Radio has had a survey of their readers to choose their #1 Christmas carol. And the results have been released. I'm not going to tell you what it is until next week's Quick Things. So be thinking about that. If you're clever, you'd be able to go to Minnesota Public Radio's website and probably find it. Or you could wait, maybe have a guess. You could respond to the Quick Things email with your guess, honestly, without going to the website first. And we'll see who can guess what the Minnesota Public Radio Christmas Carol Countdown Surveys #1 Christmas Carol was. I will share the results next week. I want to conclude with a little reflection and then a prayer. The reflection is from Father John Miaska, who was our Lenten mission presenter a year ago. He's a monk at St. John's Abbey in Collegeville, Minnesota. And he's reflecting upon the Annunciation story in Luke's Gospel, which was our gospel for Mass on Tuesday of this week. We know the story. The angel Gabriel comes to Mary and says that she is full of grace and that the Lord is with her, and that she will give birth to a son who they will name Emmanuel. In Father John's reflection, he quotes Meister Eckhart, who was a German theologian in the early 14th century, who was identified as a heretic because of some of his teaching. And it was kind of, I guess, boundary bursting at the time in terms of how people understood grace and kind of their role in the paschal mystery. And so the Bishop of Cologne was the one who identified him as a heretic. He has since been refurbished, and his teaching is proclaimed, and including what Father John offers in this reflection, which comes from Tuesday's edition of Give Us This Day. As he says, we are forever challenged by the question of Meister Eckhart, and this comes to us in relation to the Annunciation. As he says, God comes to us also more often than we are aware, asks us to trust, to listen, to ponder, to act, to birth the word, and hear him and bear him into the world. We are forever challenged, Father John says, by that question of Meister Eckhart. And here are the questions which, if you think 14th century, how people were thinking, why these might have seemed heretical, and yet they are beautiful and wonderful challenges for us. What good is it if Mary is full of grace and we are not also full of grace? And what good is it if Mary is the mother of God if we are not also the mother of God? And so we open our hearts to the Lord, hoping, praying that we might give birth to Christ, living God within us be born, as we sing in one of our hymns. So wonderful a thought for us as we go into these final days of Advent. What good is it if Mary is full of grace if we are not full of grace? And what good is it if Mary is the mother of God if we are not also the mothers of God? May we bring Christ into the world in our worship and in what we do in these days of Advent and Christmas and throughout the new year. Peace let's look forward to celebrating Christmas together.